So we have some important news in the current efforts to remove suppressors and short-barreled rifles from the NFA nationwide. 15 states recently joined in support of ending all of these remaining NFA restrictions, but the Trump DOJ is currently trying to stall out this case. So let's talk about what is happening in this critical challenge. Also, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Upside. The holidays are meant for giving, but that doesn't mean you can't get something back for yourself. With road trips, groceries, and all the gas runs, the season can add up very fast. That's why I've been using Upside. It's a free app that gets you extra cash back on everyday things like gas, groceries, and dining. There are over 100,000 gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants on Upside, so the opportunities to earn are everywhere. And yes, it's cash back, no confusing points or credits, just actual money that gets transferred into your account. I use Upside anytime I'm heading out to fill up my gas tank or grab some food. I just go to the app, claim an offer, pay with my usual card, follow the steps on the app, and get that cash back into my account. Users earn 3 times more cash back with Upside than with other products, and people are earning over $1 million every week. Upside has already given back $1 billion to its users. And to find out how much you can earn through the app, download the free Upside app and use the promo code ARMSCHOLAR to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank of gas. That's an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas by using promo code ARMSCHOLAR. So if you're interested, check them out using the link down below. Now, before we jump into this video, if you guys want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to subscribe to the channel. Also, double check to make sure YouTube is not unsubscribed you, because they love to do that, especially on Second Amendment channels. So we need to talk about what is currently happening right now in response to the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act not getting passed in the full versions that we wanted through H.R. 1, the Big Beautiful Bill. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you will know that H.R. 1 passed, and in that, we only got the reduction of the NFA tax. Under the new law starting next year, the NFA tax has been reduced from $200 per stamp all the way to $0. So effectively, there is no longer a monetary tax on those items. But in response to that, multiple 2A organizations have moved to actually finish the job and remove all of the remaining NFA restrictions on things like SBR, suppressors, AOWs, short-barreled shotguns, and all these other items that are now no longer taxed. GOA, FRAC, Silencer Shop, Palmetto State Armory, and other companies have joined together to file a lawsuit against the ATF. And now 15 states actually joined also in that lawsuit as named plaintiffs in support of ending all of these remaining ATF restrictions on these items. Now, those states are Texas, Alaska, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Montana, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Utah, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Now, in this lawsuit filed by the 2A organizations and all of these companies in the 15 states, they argue that since there's no longer a tax on these items like suppressors, SBRs, SBSs, and AOWs, since there's no longer a tax, there is no longer a constitutional basis for further regulation of these items under the NFA. In summary, what GOA and these other plaintiffs asked for in this challenge is for the court to declare that the NFA's registration and transfer requirements pertaining to the now untaxed items goes beyond Congress's enumerated powers. They also asked for the court to enjoin all of the ATF's employees and agents and other agencies and their agents from implementing or enforcing the NFA against these now untaxed firearms. So that is what the new lawsuit aims to do in response to the NFA tax change that recently passed in the Big Beautiful Bill. And now the plaintiffs also filed a motion for summary judgment to end this case sooner rather than later. What this means is essentially you have the plaintiffs and then also the ATF signaling and identifying to the court that they are going to be filing cross motion for summary judgment and that they want to end this dispute without it going to a full trial. So they believe that the court can review the record without oral arguments or any arguments like that. The court can review it and rule on this case right here and now. However, the ATF and the Trump DOJ continue to try and stall this case out for as long as possible. The first attempt by the Trump DOJ and the ATF essentially tried to stall this challenge out because of the government shutdown. They said that because of the government shutdown, they didn't have money and they could not allocate attorneys to file the response brief, and therefore they wanted kind of this indefinite period to delay their case, delay the response until the shutdown ended. Now, ultimately, the court on review of that motion denied the indefinite delay of the case because of the whole shutdown. The judge actually said that by a court order, the DOJ could be ordered to respond to this case. But the judge said, he understands that, it was a shorter time period, that they didn't have the funding and that they would have to allocate attorneys. So he did give them one additional week to file their response. So last week, the deadline was for the Trump DOJ to respond to this case. Well, as that date approached, the Trump DOJ went back to the court and sought another delay, an additional time period for them to respond to this case. In the new request, they argued that even with the court order, the DOJ was unable to find the manpower within the organization to work on and file this brief. In the request of the Trump DOJ, they state that defendants respectfully request 1 week extension of their deadline to oppose plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and cross move for summary judgment, which is currently due on November 13th, 2025. For reasons already explained, because of the lapse in the Department of Justice appropriations, undersigned counsel has been expected to work on a response to plaintiff's lengthy motion for summary judgment and defendant's cross motion for summary judgment only since October 30th, when the court denied defendant's motion for stay in the proceedings. Since then, defendants have experienced staffing unavailability due to the continued lapse in appropriations, and counsel for the defendants, the DOJ, have been managing other ongoing emergency litigation. Both circumstances have impacted defendants' ability to draft their opening brief by November 13th in that deadline. Defendants therefore request the court extension of time and the extension of the deadline for 1 week until October 20th, 2025. And luckily for the Trump DOJ, Judge Hendricks agreed to give them one additional week to respond to that motion for summary judgment. And so now they got one additional week and they will have to file that response, I believe, by next week, I believe like Wednesday. I wouldn't be surprised if next week, and as that date draws closer once again, the Trump DOJ goes back to the judge and tries to get even more time, because it seems like that is kind of their track record with this. They're trying to delay this as much as possible, maybe because they don't want to necessarily respond to this as fast as possible. Maybe they're trying to determine how they want to handle this case. But also, I think a big part of this is that the Trump DOJ, AG Bondi, the ATF has gotten a lot of blowback because of their current stance on the NFA. They continue to defend the NFA as constitutional, as not a violation of the Second Amendment, and so maybe they're trying to navigate how they want to respond to this case. But ultimately, what this means for this NFA lawsuit is that the 2A organizations are trying to end this lawsuit sooner rather than later, but the Trump ATF is trying to stall this for as long as possible. They continue to try to get extensions on the response here, and so they're just simply trying to stay and stall out this case. The plaintiffs believe that the NFA's remaining restrictions by default shall now fall because of the remaining SBR and silencer restrictions are dependent on the NFA being a tax. However, now since there is a $0 tax on those items, the states and these organizations argue that all of these remaining restrictions must now be found invalid by the courts. It's going to be interesting to see how the Trump ATF ultimately responds to this challenge once they finally file those briefs. Once they actually meet that deadline, it's going to be interesting to see what they argue, but I would suspect that the Trump DOJ will continue to defend the NFA. They've done that in multiple cases already, in district courts, circuit courts, even in the Supreme Court. They continue to defend the NFA as a constitutional restriction, that they can put these types of restrictions on these items. So again, we're going to see how the Trump DOJ responds to this, but what now it appears is that they are trying to delay the case, maybe delay that response, but ultimately I think they're still going to try to defend the NFA. So there are a lot of moving parts right now in the NFA battles, to try to get rid of the remaining restrictions. There are cases right now that are in district courts, circuit courts, also in front of the Supreme Court. And the Trump DOJ kind of has this track record right now when it comes to the NFA that they are defending it and they want to have it still in place despite the fact that there is a $0 tax on these items. So we're going to see how this plays out next week once that brief is due. As we get more information, as it develops more, I will let you guys know. If you like this video, and you like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm. Also, you can check out one of these two videos here on the screen that the YouTube algorithm thinks that you'll find helpful. You can watch those if you would like. But as always, thank you guys so much for all of your support. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.